Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki, Gaur Pranande. Hare Krishna! Welcome to our class on Srimad Bhagavatam. So we are on Canto 4, Chapter 9, text number 13. 13. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Nashta Prayasha Bhatyashu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhagavati Nishtiki. Hare Krishna. Okay, so Canto 4, Chapter 9, Text 13. Tiram Naga Dvija Sarishripa Deva Deitya Martya Devi Parichitam Sat Asat Vishesham Rupam Stavishtam Aja Te Mahat Adi Anekam Mata Param Parama Vidni Na Yatra Vada. Nagadvija Sarishri Padeva Deitya Matya Devi Parichitam Sat Asat Vishesham Rupam Stavishtam Jate Mahad Adyanekam Nata Param Paramaveda Yatra Vada. Tiram Nagadvija Sarishri Padeva Deitya Matya Devi Parichitam Sat Asat Vishesham Rupam Stavishtam Jate Mahad Adyanekam Nata Param Paramaveda Yatra Vada. Tiram Nagadvija Sarishri Padeva Deitya Matya Devi Parichitam Sat Asat Vishesham Rupam Stavishtam Jate Mahad Adyanekam Nata Param Paramaveda Yatra Vada. Tiram Nagadvija Sarishri Padeva Deitya Matya Devi Parichitam Sat Asat Vishesham Rupam Stavishtam Jate Mahad Adyanekam Nata Param Paramaveda Yatra Vada. Tiram Nagadvija Sarishri Padeva Deitya Natya Devi Parichitam Sadasat Vishesham Rupam Stavishtam Jate Mahad Adyanekam Nata Param Paramavedmana Yatra Vada Piyam Nagat Vijasarishari Padeva Deja Yatya Devi Parichitam Sadasat Vishesham Rupam Stavishtam Jate Mahad Adyanekam Nata Param Paramavedmana Yatra Vada Tiryak by animals, Naga trees, Dvija birds, Sarishripa reptiles, Deva demigods, Daitya demons, Marja Adibi by men, Parichitam pervaded, Sat Asat Vishesham with varieties manifest and unmanifest. Rupam form, Stavishtam gross universal, Aja O unborn, Te your, Mahat Adi caused by the total material energy, Anekam various causes, Na not, Ata from this, Param transcendental, Parama O supreme, Vedmi I know, Na not, Yatra where, Vada various arguments. My dear Lord, O Supreme Unborn, I know that the different varieties of living entities, such as animals, trees, birds, reptiles, demigods, and human beings, are spread throughout the universe, which is caused by the total material energy, and I know that they are sometimes manifest and sometimes unmanifest. But I have never experienced the supreme form I behold as I see you now. Now all kinds of methods of theorizing have come to an end. My dear Lord, repeat. O Supreme Unborn, I know that the different varieties of living entities, such as animals, trees, birds, reptiles, demigods, and human beings, are spread throughout the universe, which is caused by the total material energy, and I know that they are sometimes manifest and sometimes unmanifest. But I have never experienced the supreme form I behold as I see you now. Now all kinds of methods of theorizing have come to an end. Purport. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that He has spread Himself throughout the universe, but although everything is resting upon Him, He is aloof. The same concept is expressed here by Dhruva Maharaj. He states that before seeing the transcendental form of the Lord, he had experienced only the varieties of material forms, which are counted at 8,400,000 species of aquatics, birds, beasts, etc. The fact is that unless one engages in a devotional service of the Lord, it is impossible to understand the ultimate form of the Lord. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 1855. Bhaktyamam abhijanati. Factual understanding of the Absolute Truth, who is the Supreme Person, cannot be obtained by any process other than devotional service. Dhruva Maharaj here compares his previous state of understanding with the perfection of understanding in the presence of the Supreme Lord. The position of a living entity is to render service. Unless he comes to the stage of appreciating the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he engages in the service of the various forms of trees, reptiles, animals, men, demigods, etc. One can experience that one man engages in the service of a dog, another serves plants and creepers, another the demigods, and another humanity, or his boss in the office. But no one is engaged in the service of Krishna. Aside from common men, even men who are elevated in terms of spiritual understanding are at the utmost engaged in the service of the Virat Rupa. Or, unable to understand the ultimate form of the Lord, they worship voidism by meditation. Dhruva Maharaj, however, had been blessed by the Supreme Lord. When the Lord touched his conch shell to Dhruva's forehead, real knowledge was revealed from within, and Dhruva could understand the Lord's transcendental form. Dhruva Maharaj here admits that not only was he ignorant, but by years he was only a child. It would not have been possible for an ignorant child to appreciate the supreme form of the Lord had he not been blessed by the Lord, who had touched his conch shell to Dhruva's forehead. Om Jnanatirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manavishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yataparakamlam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sarvadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shiva Shakhan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishwabhanu Sita Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Patitanam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavabhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Hare. So Dhruva Maharaj was meditating on the form of the Lord within his heart, and then the form of the Lord disappeared from within his heart and appeared before his eyes. And when at that moment Dhruva realizes that I've been asking for this material benediction, but actually just seeing you, my Lord, in front of me and just associating with you, that fulfills all of my heart's desires, and I don't want anything else. And because Dhruva is just a young boy, he doesn't have the understanding or the vocabulary to properly glorify the Lord. So then the Lord takes his conch shell and he touches the forehead of Dhruva Maharaj and gives him the vocabulary and the understanding and all the words needed for his glorification. And now we're on a verse which says, My dear Lord, O Supreme Unborn, I know that the different varieties of living entities, such as animals, trees, birds, reptiles, demigods, and human beings, are spread throughout the universe, which is caused by the total material energy. And I know that they are sometimes manifest and sometimes unmanifest, but I have never experienced the supreme form I behold as I see you now. Now all kinds of methods of theorizing have come to an end. So Dhruva Maharaj, he doesn't need to contemplate vague ideas on who the Supreme Personality of Godhead is anymore, because he's actually seeing him in front of him. So he doesn't need to theorize about it and wonder about it. And the form that's actually in front of him, it's not Krishna in his two-handed form, it's actually Kshirodakashayi Vishnu who is manifest before him, and that's explained in the later purports for the later texts coming up. So it's Kshirodakashayi Vishnu who is manifested before him, and that would be Vishnu who has the lotus flower and conch shell and his paraphernalia in that form. So let's go through the purport. This is Dhruva, he's glorifying the Lord, and we're in the text where he's still busy speaking about the Lord and his experience of seeing the Lord in front of him. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that he has spread himself throughout the universe. But although everything is resting upon him, he is aloof. The same concept is expressed here by Dhruva Maharaj. He states that before seeing the transcendental form of the Lord, he had experienced only the varieties of material forms, which are counted at 8,400,000 species of aquatics, birds, beasts, etc. The fact is that unless one engages in the devotional service of the Lord, it is impossible to understand the ultimate form of the Lord. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 1855. Bhaktya mam abhijanati. Factual understanding of the Absolute Truth, who is the Supreme Person, cannot be obtained by any process other than devotional service. So we could spend hours or years or lifetimes just wondering about the Supreme Lord or trying to read about him, but we could know so much about him without actually knowing him. We could understand so many aspects about him, like his Virat Rupa form, without actually understanding that he's a little blue boy in Vrindavan. And those who actually love Krishna most have that understanding. So although we can know so much, unless we actually engage in devotional service, we won't start to manifest our love for Krishna as a person, as a personality, and we may get caught up with experiencing the Lord through his various energies, because this is what we know and what we can see around us. So we can see the animals, the trees, the birds, and the reptiles, and we can understand that everything in existence is coming from the Supreme Lord. He says in the Bhagavad Gita, Aham sarvasya prabhavam yatha sarvam pravartate iti matva pajantam vidabhava samandvitaha. He explains to Arjuna that I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who know this perfectly engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. So anyone who has some understanding that everything is emanating from the Supreme Lord, they engage in devotional service. And then by engaging in devotional service, they start to get an appreciation for the personal form of the Lord. And we can understand that Krishna is a person because we're all people. We're a person. We're all personalities. We have things we like, things we don't like, things we're good at, things we're not good at. Of course, Krishna is good at everything, and he is transcendental and pure, but he's also a person with a personality. He also has things he likes and things he doesn't like. Give us an example of what Krishna likes. Who can give an example? Yes, Tulsi. He loves Tulsi. It's why we also offer Tulsi. We always offer Tulsi when we are making an offering to the Lord. Any bhoga that they're preparing is always offered with Tulsi Devi. We won't accept anything without Tulsi. What else does he like? Butter. Yes, he likes butter. What doesn't he like? Yes, he doesn't like impersonalists, because then he can't have this special ras with them like he does with Mother Yashoda. He's playing with his friends, and he is crying in front of Mother Yashoda, and he can't have that special connection with anyone who thinks that God is not a person. He can't have that. So yes, he doesn't like impersonalists. Only for that reason. He loves every living entity. Everyone is coming from him. Everyone is part and parcel of him. But he doesn't like it. And he would appreciate if the impersonalists would realize that, oh, there is a personality behind that, energy behind that effulgence of the Lord. There is someone there. There was a man who was very well educated, and he had some philosophical questions for Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. But when he came to visit him and ask him his questions, at that time Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was busy, so he said, go to my disciples there and you can ask them. They were busy as well, actually. They were busy washing the deity's paraphernalia. So they said, you can help us in the meantime while you're waiting. And as he started assisting these devotees in their service, all of the questions to all of his answers started manifesting within his mind. Everything was answered. Well, maybe from within his heart, rather, we can say. So this is like a nice practical example of how by performing devotional service, we get realization. Not otherwise. And it's something active. Devotional service doesn't mean just sitting and trying to artificially meditate. This was mentioned in class yesterday as well, that we're not on such a level that we can sit on the banks of Radhakund and meditate on very high pastimes of the Lord. We're not on that level. But devotional service for us means practical engagement in something, because we're very restless by nature. We're in the mood of passion a lot of the time, so we need something practical to be engaged in. But of course, one of the most important services is the chanting of Hare Krishna. That is the first and foremost service, and all of our other services, my Guru Maharaj explains, should actually revolve around that main service. Guru gives us instructions, and that's the very first and most important instruction to be followed, the chanting of Hare Krishna. And another example of how chanting itself can also manifest realization. Of course it does, because everything manifests with the chanting of the holy names, but there's one nice example of that. One of Srila Prabhupada's disciples was chanting about 64 rounds every day for many years. And he didn't have a lot of personal association with Srila Prabhupada, but he had a lot of questions that he wanted to ask him. And we must understand that the kind of questions he would have had must have been very high after chanting so much for so long. And Srila Prabhupada was in a condition where his body was very weak. So he calls this disciple over, and then he puts his mouth to the disciple's ear and he chants the Maha Mantra. And then this disciple explained that at that moment, all of his questions were answered by hearing the chanting of the Maha Mantra by a pure devotee within his ear, that his heart could understand all of those questions. We may have many questions, and we may even get many answers. At least for myself, I know I have a lot of questions, and I do get a lot of answers. But sometimes we can't understand those answers yet. Until later, we can't understand, until we actually receive realization. Some things will just be too high for us, as much as we try to understand. And then by chanting and by serving, we'll find that those questions become answered. And then we'll look back at our notebook of questions and say, oh, I know the answer now. Yes, so devotional service. I'll just read this last line again. Factual understanding of the absolute truth, who is the Supreme Person, cannot be obtained by any process other than devotional service. Okay. Dhruva Maharaj here compares his previous state of understanding with the perfection of understanding in the presence of the Supreme Lord. So before he was in the presence of the Supreme Lord, he couldn't have had that understanding. The The position of the living entity is to render service. Unless he comes to the stage of appreciating the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he engages in the service of the various forms of trees, reptiles, animals, men, demigods, etc. One can experience that one man engages in the service of a dog, another serves plants and creepers, another the demigods, and another humanity, or his boss in the office, but no one is engaged in the service of Krishna. So we see in the world people keep dogs and they're serving their dogs, and Srila Prabhupada gives this example that they love their dogs so much that they're willing to clean up their stool on the side of the road. That's how much they love their dogs. And people, they sometimes keep like different kinds of reptiles. They'll keep snakes and bearded dragons, chameleons in little tanks, take care of them, make sure they're okay, and serve them. So it's good to understand that all of these living entities are part and parcel of Krishna, and we actually have a responsibility to each and every one of them to assist them in their devotional service to whatever capacity. I mean, we can't engage the ant in so much service, but we can chant for him, even by walking around and chanting outside. The trees are all benefiting from that. So it's nice to take care of them, but we should understand that our service is meant to be for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Devotional service cannot be to anyone else, even to demigods who are very powerful and very exalted personalities and great devotees. We can respect them and appreciate them, but devotional service is only meant for Krishna. Okay. Aside from common men, even men who are elevated in terms of spiritual understanding are at the utmost engaged in the service of the Virat Rupa, or, unable to understand the ultimate form of the Lord, they worship Buddhism by meditation. So even if someone does have some understanding that everything is a part and parcel of the Lord, if they don't see the personal feature of the Lord, then they may worship the Virat Rupa form of the Lord. They may see that Krishna is an energy, everything is emanating from him, so let's worship that aspect of him, which we spoke about already. Or if they can't even realize that much, then they'll get frustrated and just worship voidism. They'll think there isn't really anything. Because we do hear about how the material world is just illusory. It is. But it's not that it's not there. It does exist. It does all exist. It's just that it's so temporary and so fleeting. That's why it's illusory. And it's illusory because we think this is ultimate reality. We're in Maya. We think this is it. But it's not really. There's so much more. The spiritual realm is real reality, and this is all just a perverted reflection of that reality. So in that way it's illusory, but it does exist. So those who are worshipping just nothing will find a lot of frustration because there isn't really such a thing as nothing. Everything is something, and everything in the spiritual world is personal. And for a devotee, we were actually reading in one of the previous purports about how for a devotee, this material world is actually a place of pleasure, not just mundane pleasure, but it's a place of spiritual satisfaction because we can engage in the service of the Lord. Isn't that wonderful? Anywhere you are, if you're serving the Lord and you're absorbed in that service, that is a place of real pleasure. For the Vaishnav, they don't see that this material world is just Maya. They see an opportunity to serve Krishna with everything that is here. It's not just Maya, it is an opportunity. And Her Grace Aruda Prabhu was mentioning something that stuck with me. She was speaking about how even the material energy is not just material energy. For a materialist it is, but for a spiritualist, for a devotee, that material energy is also spiritual, because anything coming from Krishna is spiritual. It just depends on how we see it and how we use it. And Srila Prabhupada also shows how he saw everything from the perspective of how we can use in Krishna's service. Like, and this was mentioned in a class the other night as well by Virabhadra Prabhu. He saw a bead bag. So a materialist may see a bead bag and think there are beads, there's a bead bag, and that's where their consciousness ends. But Prabhupada said, do you see that bead bag alone over there? It's crying. So that's a very personal way to connect with the bead bag and see it in relation to Krishna and to Krishna's devotees. The bead bag has emotions. So we don't really see on that level, but we can appreciate that Prabhupada did, that he actually did have that vision way beyond what we can understand. And even prasadam, when he saw prasadam, he said, why is that prasadam there on its own? It's crying. So he had that vision. Dhruva Maharaj, however, had been blessed by the Supreme Lord. When the Lord touched his conch shell to Dhruva's forehead, real knowledge was revealed from within, and Dhruva could understand the Lord's transcendental form. Dhruva Maharaj here admits that not only was he ignorant, but by years he was only a child. It would not have been possible for an ignorant child to appreciate the supreme form of the Lord had he not been blessed by the Lord, who had touched his conch shell to Dhruva's forehead. Anything that we can do is just due to mercy. Even moving and breathing in these bodies, it's only due to mercy. And whatever good we can do in Krishna's service, it's all only mercy. Whatever we've got and whatever we can do, it's because Krishna's allowing that. Not a blade of grass can move without the sanction of the Lord. So the demigods, his various agents, are assisting in that process. Like, if we want to move, we can't just move. The god of the wind has to permit that. And all of the other gods, the demigods, they have to allow that to take place. But everything is ultimately sanctioned by Krishna himself. And any empowerment we receive to preach in any way or to serve in any way or to speak the glories of the Lord, like in this case Dhruva Maharaj is able to do, even though he's just a child, it's all only due to the desire of the Supreme Lord. Okay, I think we'll end there. Are there any questions, comments, or corrections? Jai Prabhu, Raghunath Prabhu.
No, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So he was talking about the chanting beads. I remember Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur saying that you have to chant Hare Krishna, and Tulsi shouldn't be fasting. So the Tulsi beads should be used for chanting. It shouldn't be fasting. So if you're not chanting, you consider that the beads are fasting.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. You speak about. Can you explain about the Virat Rupa? You meant it's read there. Prabhupada saw the Virat Rupa.
Oh, you want me to explain? You can explain, Prabhu. Okay. The Virat Rupa form of the Lord is described in the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's actually an imaginary form of the Lord for, you could say, neophytes, or people who can't understand that Krishna is a personality. It's for them to just take a step closer. Basically, it's looking at the world and getting some upadhis, which is like a reminder of Krishna's form. Like if you see the trees, you can think about how that's Krishna's hairs. If you see the mountains, that's like his bones, right? I think stacks of his bones. So look, and the ocean, is his belly. So you would see these different features in the world. Even though this Virat Rupa is imaginary, you would get some idea that there's a form, that God has a form. Well, because if you can't understand that Krishna is a little blue boy in Vrindavan, then at least you can get a little bit closer to that understanding by understanding that Krishna is he has a form, if that helps. Okay. Do you have something? No. Yes, Ravindra.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
You were mentioning about when we chanting outside in front of the many different entities. Prabhupada's mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that if one chants in front of trees and plants, even different entities, they get some benefits. So yeah, it's there in Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Yes, thank you. And Srila Prabhupada was so compassionate. You reminded me of a point I wanted to bring up there. When he saw a little ant, he said, "You see this ant here? I have a very big responsibility to this ant. My responsibility is to chant Hare Krishna and help that ant become elevated." He said that. Very big responsibility. It's true. If we have the Mahamantra, we've also got a big responsibility to assist others in chanting the Mahamantra who can't chant. An ant can't chant. But if we chant for him, he will hear that, and in his next life he will be chanting too. Isn't that wonderful? Anything else? Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki, Gaur Premanande.